I humbly sit here just as another fellow reader girly who has not read a single page in the last 2 weeks, hasn't finished a book in the last 3.5. And I was thinking, as that humble reading girly, why don't I just sit here and I tell you 10 books that I'm telling myself I absolutely must read, even though I'm in maybe a devastating reading slump in the next 5 weeks. Because I mean, like, what could go wrong with that, right? That's only gonna make my reading anxiety better, never worse. Why would that make it worse? Adding more responsibility always makes everything better. I'm glad you could make it. And welcome to my humble reader girly list of my 10 before the end. Now, this has been one of my favorite things to do when November rolls around and we are saying, oh well, the year's about to end, what the actual fuck is going on? And I have not read every single book that I told myself that I was gonna read this year, so I'm gonna make a list of 10 that I'm telling you, you can make sure that I've read this year. You can be mean to me about it as long as you're nice when you're mean to me about it. However, these are 10 books that are on my priority TBR in terms of reading for the rest of the year. This is what I want it to look like, okay? This is what I'm telling myself I'm going to be picking up. Now you might be asking yourself, hey Maddie, when's the last time you finished a book? Trust me, you don't want the answer. You don't. Because it's been a minute. It's been a while. And I don't even want to venture to call it a reading slump because, like, why put a title on something that's not fun? You know what I mean? I'm calling it a reading hiatus to enjoy life to the fullest, except for that would be a lie because life is lifing really hard right now. I feel like life looked at me and said, like, what if we just like cosmically came together and every single thing that you know about life, we're gonna change it. How's that? Like, I venture to say someone put a piece of Moldavite in my purse and that's why everything in my life is changing all at once. That being said, I miss diving into escapism of other worlds, and particularly the escapism of these worlds. The 10 before the end, meaning the 10 books that I will read before the year 2026. Yeah, they're long. Yeah, I haven't read or finished a book in a really long time. I'm telling myself, though, in these 5 weeks, I'm adding this fun little gamifying of stress. In these 10 weeks, I'm gonna read these 10 books. Now, if you've read any of these, I want to hear all your thoughts and opinions. I want you to be telling me which ones I need to be picking up sooner than later. I want you to see this list and say, hey, I want to see this book in a video, or I actually did not care for that one, and maybe I'll transfer it out for something else. That being said, staring at my bookshelves, making eye contact with my bookshelves, these are the 10 books that I want the rest of my 2025 reading to be made up of. Maybe I'll get crazy and I'll end up reading like 15 books, but I'm probably also not gonna do that. So these are my 10 before the end. And I would also love to see what you guys are planning to read for the rest of 2025. So while you're here, make sure to head down to the comments and let me know what your 10 before the end are. And maybe we'll have some that we correspond on. And then it's kind of like we're reading them together. It's kind of like a big buddy reading situation. But what if before all of that, we did a little bit of a jewelry tour moment? Well, maybe not my entire jewelry tour, because if I'm honest, most of my jewelry is from the random places and they end up breaking and tarnishing and they end up being switched out with something else, which enters in Damon. I have been trying to be a little bit more intentional with the jewelry that I am buying. I am starting to build out a little bit of an heirloom collection for me, because if there's one thing about me, it's that I'm always going to be sentimental and I'm always thinking about what I'm going to be passing down. And what better way to celebrate the little wins in life and the big wins in life than by celebrating them with a piece of high quality, timeless jewelry that every single time I look down at the jewelry collection I am building, I'm reminded of all of these little wins. And if we're honest, I am sentimental to my core, so I am thinking about said future daughter who is going to be getting all of these things. But if there is one thing I know about investing in high quality pieces, it's that precious metals and precious jewels tend to come at a crazy markup. And Domain is here to solve that issue for us, to make sure that we are getting the best quality at an actually fair price. Domain is selling directly to me and to you, and by cutting out that middleman, you are saving up to 40% on the price tag for that piece of jewelry. The whole company started when a Frenchman living in New York met a woman in Paris and fell in love with her and wanted to design the most perfect timeless engagement ring for her, which has given us a jewelry company focused on timeless designs between a Parisian-based design team and New York fashion. So whether you are looking to start or just build onto a beautiful high-quality jewelry collection of your own, Damon is going to make sure that you are paying absolutely the fairest price with the most timeless designs. And if you are interested, you can use Madison 20 to save 20% on your order directly from the jewelry collection that I am beginning to build to you. And a huge thank you to Damon for sponsoring today's video. And now we get back to the books. Now, in no particular order, I present to you my 10 before the end. Starting off with a real bang, because I'm gonna need you to imagine that I'm actually holding up Dawn of Chaos and Fury and not Tempest of Wrath and Vengeance, which, yeah, I do have a problem with the names of the Legacy series by Melissa K. Rourke because I always get them mixed up. Secrets of Sorrow Hero and Siege and Shadow and something. The second one with all the S's is the one that fucks me up the most. That being said, the Legacy series, book 1, 2, and 3 are the only fantasy series in the entirety of my reading journey that I've rated every single book 5-star. Like across the board. This is an incredibly dark fantasy series with a beautiful, interesting line of romance that has such strong, well-developed, well-tuned, very thought-provoking fantasy elements and magic building, world building elements to it. And the last book in the series, Dawn of Chaos and Fury, is in fact going to be gracing our eyeballs on November 18th. And to say that I'm excited would be the understatement of the century. I will be finishing the 3 books that I'm in the middle of. Again, I don't need to get into it, okay? I don't really know what's going on either. However, I will be finishing those 3 books in anticipation for being able to pick up Dawn of Chaos and Fury the day that it comes out. Like, this is the motivation that I am needing to move forward in my reading journey at this point in time, okay? And I know that reading Dawn of Chaos and Fury, there's a real chance it puts me in a reading slump and it throws all of this out the window. We're manifesting that's not gonna happen either. That's why we have an array of genres on here, because this feels like a realistic 10 before the end of everything that I want to read that'll mix up genres that'll keep me reading. That being said, the 4th book in the Legacy series is number 1 on our 10 before the end. The Legacy series is such an interesting world and plot and everything. I love everything that Melissa K. Rourke writes. I want you to go into this series if you intend on picking it up, and I know a lot of you guys have, knowing that it is very dark. The whole story of everything going on in this book is incredibly dark. We're essentially following Tessa, who is a fae on this planet of Devram, and the planet of Devram is basically compiled of a bunch of legacy, which are the children of the gods, and they were all plopped onto this planet of Devram, and they were left with dominion over the fae and dominion over the mortals. Now, they leave the mortals alone for the most part, and the whole concept of this was that the legacy were going to be put on this planet, and the gods wouldn't interfere anymore, because the mixing of bloodlines and powers and stuff, it was getting a little messy. So the gods have removed themselves, and the legacy are now in charge of this planet. But the fae are raised that the highest honor in this entire world is to be a source for one of the legacy, which is essentially when you are bound together by magic, mind, body, and soul, to be able to share power and basically live in servitude to a legacy. And essentially all of the fae on this planet are in servitude to the legacy, which is an incredibly fucked up system. And Tessa's not really cool with that. But when she gets chosen to be the source of one of the scariest legacy from the scariest part of this planet's familial lines, she's not cool with that. She can't really get behind it, and she thinks there's something a little bit fucked up going on. And from there, the entire story takes place. And the way that this weaves itself into the Lady of Darkness series, which I am currently in the middle of reading, I just love everything Melissa K. Rourke is doing with this entire chaos verse and everything she plans to do with this chaos verse. Like new autobi author across the board. The actual weaving of the story and the characters, so beautiful. And I've seen a lot of people say that Tessa is irritable and really hard to read in the mind of. To that I say, I related to her a little too much. So maybe that's why I liked it so much. I don't know what I should read into that about. Anyways, 1 out of 10 is the last book in the Legacy series, and it is probably the highest on my TBR. Like, it is the book I am most anticipating. Staying on the Melissa K. Rourke train, I need you to imagine that I am once again holding up Lady of Shadows and not Lady of Darkness, because Melissa K. Rourke is one of those authors that I always read on Kindle, and then when I finish the book, I buy. It's not always when I finish the book. I just kind of buy them when I feel like buying them. That being said, I have about 30 pages left of the Lady of Darkness book. Loving it, literally loving it, just haven't been reading. So when I'm holding this book up, I want you to think of Lady of Shadows, the second book in the series. Now, my original plan was to have read the entire Lady of Darkness series before going into the last book in the Legacy series, because a lot does correspond. I still hold the opinion, I obviously haven't finished the Lady of Darkness series yet, but I still hold the opinion that you can definitely read Legacy first, and that's okay. Like, I haven't found it's ruined anything for me, even though I know who some people in this series are from reading the Legacy series, if that makes any sense. It hasn't ruined any of the reading experience for me. That being said, I was hoping to end Dawn of Chaos and Fury with this entire series read, but it was kind of ambitious, because I mean, like, I've read Tempest of Wrath and Vengeance in the end of September, and this is a 5-book series, and that one's coming out next week, so that was a little bit crazy. That being said, Lady of Darkness is much more like your typical assassin female fantasy situation going on, okay? It's still so much fun. It's still quite dark. It's just not as dark as the Legacy series, and I feel like you can tell that Melissa K. Rourke expanded on all these fantasy ideas and ideals and magic in the world going into Legacy, and Lady of Darkness is just a good old assassin female main character, and we love her. Our main character, Scarlet, is a very elusive, very well-known assassin, but not by her name, by her assassin name, with her 2 sisters for the Assassin Lord, who is the leader of the Black Syndicate, and it's a lot of like political intrigue and political moving and a lot of moving pieces, but there's like an underlying plot going on within this that is being carried through, I'm imagining, through a lot of the stories, and it'll expand on. However, Scarlet and what Scarlet is and what a lot of people in this book are is kind of what's up for question, because the human world is completely blocked off from all of the Fae, Night Children, etc. realms, and there shouldn't be any of those things in the human realm. But there may be those lines are blurred a little bit, and everyone is a little bit fucked up politically more than we were anticipating. But in totality, we were following Scarlet on her journey of trying to solve a couple of issues and being the badass assassin that she is, and it connects to the Chaosverse. So I know that her story is going to be fucking epic from what I kind of know about her from the Legacy series, but I don't know how she got there. That's why I don't think Legacy is a spoiler, if that makes any sense. Beartown by Fredrik Bachman. Are you surprised? Because you really shouldn't be. I feel like I screamed from the rooftops how My Friends was my favorite book of that month and like one of my favorite books of the entire year. The sentiments of that story like literally literally live in my bone marrow. I had a friend over the other day and we were looking at my bookshelves and she was looking for something to borrow, and I was just flipping through my friends reading quotes to her. Tell me why I cried. Tell me why I cried. And that is what I get out of Fredrik Bachman's writing and what I'm expecting getting out of anything else by Fredrik Bachman. And I've heard this is even sadder, this entire series. So I'm excited to get into this. I know it deals with a lot of heavy topics, but I think the way that Fredrik Bachman writes emotions and characters and character development, especially like through my friends, like the very specific lens in which he tells things. Like I said it when I was reading my friends, that I was like, I feel like he talks about the moments, those little pieces of flour that grow in the concrete, and that's what his stories are about. Like very much so about the human condition, and the stories where they take place and the actual plot of the stories is just like the cherry on top to everything that you're reading in the moment, because the actual character development and the character relations and how people lean on each other, at least from my experience so far, is like really what makes the stories so impactful. I know this is about a town and there's something that happens with the hockey team and everyone's kind of rallying around the hockey team. It's a really bad description. That being said, I really want to go into this blind, so I'm not going to be reading the back for you, but I know that it deals with a lot of heavy topics and that it's worth looking into the trigger warnings before going into this. But getting like a series worth of character development from him, like I'm gonna read it when I need a good cry, which is, oh, yesterday. Wild motherfucking Reverence by Rebecca Ross. Now, Miss Rebecca Ross has made herself one of my favorite fantasy authors with the Divine Rivals Letters of Enchantment duology. I feel like I am of the unpopular opinion that I also loved Ruthless Vows. I loved that entire duology as a whole. I definitely think I liked Divine Rivals more than Ruthless Vows, but I was very happy with everything we got in Ruthless Vows and I enjoyed the reading experience of it. That being said, apparently this is miles better. Like apparently this blows that out of the water, and like that was already so far out of the water to begin with. We're gonna be at the top of Mount Everest for me if this does what I think it's gonna do. What is with all of my analogies today? I have no idea where all the analogies are coming from. It's like giving borderline Unhinged. It's giving she needs to take a second. This is essentially like a prequel situation going into Divine Rivals, so you can kind of read this in any order. That being said, it takes place in the exact same world, and we're following a god who is essentially the messenger god, and it's a love story with someone on Earth, is what I've gathered from this. All of that's to say, have you seen the naked hardback of this girl? Yeah, no. Literally one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. Seeing this in person and seeing that naked hardback in person just confirmed to me that everything that I've heard about it was correct and that I need to add to her right now. Rebecca Ross just knows how to write romance, like romantic writing. Like it just is so, her characters and everything, there's just like so much underlying romance, like romanticization of everything. And what if you took a shot every single time I said the word romance? Don't do that. You'd have to reevaluate all your decisions if you did that. Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. Now I'm gonna try and be quick about this one because this book weighs 1,100 pounds. And I do not want to be holding it for too long. That being said, it's the second book in the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. Children of Fallen Gods is the first book. Daughter of No Worlds is actually the book that Emily gave me very rudely, actually, to be honest, in February to read in a 24-hour period, which the font in here, she's pretty small and they're pretty long books. So being given that chunk of a book to read just like kind of truly for 19 and a half hours straight, I did thank her at the end though. So it was a cruel and unusual thing to do to me, but like I did thank her for it at the end. Again, I don't know what that says about our friendship. I think it says she can do no wrong and she actually knows my reading taste and she was 100% right. There's a character in Daughter of No Worlds, a thing, an entity, something in that book that is carrying forward in the series that I just in my entire heart could not stop thinking about after I finished Daughter of No Worlds. However, I had the indie copy of Daughter of No Worlds and I really wanted to have the indie copy of all the books in the series, so I did hunt for them and I do have all 3 books in these indie copies to read and to annotate and have beautifully living on my shelf all together. Carissa Broadbent always has the most beautiful naked hardbacks, so I knew that because I had the first book in the indie copy, I really wanted to have the next books in the indie copies. They took a while to come though, and it took a while to get them in my hands, and then I feel like I was a little bit removed from the series, and now I'm just terrified to go back into it, because what has to happen? Like there's no way what this story is going to do is not going to be like a oh, my heart's on the floor. Yeah, no, I have a feeling you're not gonna put it back. Is kind of how I'm feeling about this series. I've also heard that this book is quite a bit slower and then the third book is crazy, epic, amazing. But the ending of this is really amazing. Kind of heard a lot of contradicting things across the board. If you were getting that gist from everything that I was saying, or matter of fact, really not saying, I think the problem is that I'm not saying a lot. There's a lot of words, but they're not meaning a lot. However, this is really, really high on the priority because I want to have read this entire series this year. I know it is going to be like a god tier series for me, but you know when you know something's going to be god tier, so you're a little bit scared to go into it? That's kind of how I'm feeling about it. Our main character, Desana, was stolen into slavery. However, she was born with a little bit of magic, which is kind of rare, not very common. So she ends up bargaining with her slave master to be able to free herself to go to where all of the magic lives, the magical 2 towers. I do not remember what it's called. However, there's 2 types of magic and each tower represents 1 type of magic. And she goes there and she asks for help to try and wage war against all the slavery that is going on in her home country. And everything kind of spirals from there. They're kind of like, no, we can't really help you. You don't really know how to use your magic yet. So we're going to pair you up with Max over here and he's going to teach you how to use your magic and then we'll go from there. How's that? We'll go from there. And just, Max and Desana have a piece of my heart and I haven't even finished the series. Wisteria by Adalyn, Grace, the first 2 books in the series, Belladonna and, I know what it's called. Why can I not think of it? Belladonna and Foxglove It was not even on the tip of my tongue. I wasn't even kind of close. However, they were some of my favorite fantasy reads of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. Like, I had so much fun reading those books. They just kind of feel like a warm, cozy hug. Adalyn Grace has this very fun, whimsical way of writing that she makes these very dark stories and dark topics and like the incorporeal existence of death kind of whimsical and beautiful and fun. And I don't really know how to explain it beyond that. However, the reading experience of every single one of these has been so fun for me, and I've enjoyed every single second of it. And the whimsy and the story and the characters in this, I just really like. It feels very fantasy, very fairy tale, very whimsical, which is kind of really fun to mix in when you're reading a lot of darker fantasies, which those darker fantasies usually tend to be the ones that like really, really stick with me. And like, I love a big, complicated magic system and worlds that's dealing with a lot of political turmoil, but sometimes it's just fun to read kind of more of a contained story. Not that this is contained in a bad way. I mean, it's contained in a good way. Like, the world feels small, but it's very intricate and detailed, and I'm enjoying every single second that I'm in it. In Belladonna, we're following Belladonna, I think. I'm pretty sure her name is... No, it's not. Oh, it's like something. It starts with an S. In Belladonna, we're following a female main character who, for some reason, has always had this weird connection to death and the character of death, and death seems to follow her everywhere she goes, and maybe it's kind of protecting her, but when she has cycled through a lot of not so great caregivers, she ends up with an extended version of her family with cousins and her uncle, and there's kind of where the story takes place. But there's something going on there. There's some sort of weird sickness going on there, and only her and death working together are going to be the thing that's going to be able to solve it. And we meet kind of a large cast of characters. Everyone is kind of spooky, and you kind of feel like you can't trust everyone, but as the story goes on and the characters that you meet and everything that goes on from there, it's just like become this very fun, fantastical world that I feel like I can just picture so well in my brain. Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. I didn't even realize there was going to be a third book in this series, so I need to catch up. Because I read Ninth House in a very weird situation. Like, I was on planes and going places and doing things, and it was kind of in a reading slump version of my life. And when I finished that book, I sat back with it for a really long time, and I was like, I can't not give this book 5 stars. Like, the actual composition and the writing and the delivery of this book deserves 5 stars, and I don't think I could have gotten a 5-star feeling out of anything at that time, and I'm getting 5-star feelings out of this. Even if it's maybe not in my heart, it's in my brain. So, I want to read further in the series to see how I'm gonna feel. Obviously, Six of Crows is one of my favorite duologies of all time. Like, I think about those books all the time. Someone remind me to do a Crooked Kingdom reread, because that's like, I think that would solve a lot of my problems doing a reread for that story. This is a completely different world, everything. I think Leigh Bardugo is such a talented author for being able to create these like totally different stories and worlds and like different levels of writing. Like, Ninth House feels much more adult in comparison to kind of the YA world of Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows. But in Ninth House, we're essentially following Alex Stern, who had a very hard upbringing, which had a lot to do with the fact that she could and has always been able to see ghosts, and she's had a lot of terrifying traumatic experiences. Again, look at the triggers going into that story. There are quite a few. However, she's been offered this scholarship to Yale to be a part of the Ninth House, which is the governing body of all the secret societies at Yale, because they make sure when everyone is doing their spells, all their incantations and everything, that nothing on the other side of the veil can get through. And obviously, not very many people can see ghosts, so they have to take like a potion mixture kind of situation to watch over everything during incantations with any of the other houses, any of the other secret societies at Yale, to make sure that nothing weird is going on and no one is coming through the veil. However, she can do that without the potion, so obviously she's been offered a scholarship at Yale because they would obviously rather someone just be able to do the job. But when she gets there, her advisor, the guy who is above her in Ninth House, disappears. Now she's kind of on this journey for trying to figure out where Darlington has gone. The whole magic system of this is so cool. Like, it has a lot to do with ley lines and how Yale was built where it was built because of where all of the ley lines lined up. So it was very conducive to have a lot of magic. And it's also this like interesting story on like how secret societies and like these top universities run the entire world. And these incantations in this world are like who is deciding who's going to be political leaders and all of that stuff. And Alex is like, I'm literally just a girl who's traumatized. Why am I in charge of any of this? You know? And now my advisor's missing. So I guess I have to deal with that. Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. Okay, book talk got me. I really want to read this. It's such a short, sweet kind of book. Sweet is not what I meant. I actually don't know. I'm pretty sure it's not sweet in any way, shape, or form. I know this is much more on a literary fiction, general fiction kind of side, but by short and sweet, I mean it's really quite short in comparison to everything else that is on this list. From what I know about this, it's a woman who's in a marriage that's very happy and fun, very middle of the row, very okay, when her high school sweetheart, a guy that she loved so intensely, comes back into town, and she's starting to question things and question how she feels about things. But then we're getting another timeline of a murder investigation and a murder trial. I should check the back and make sure that I'm even remotely right. I was. She's such a thinker. I've heard nothing but positive reviews about this, and I want to go into this as blind as I possibly can. I have no idea what the writing style is going to be in here. However, I am trying to get more into general fiction. I feel like those are a lot of the books that end up sitting with me a lot. Staying on a more general fiction, historical fiction lane of everything, we do in fact have The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Now, how many times have you seen this on a list from me? No, so many times. However, I am telling myself that I was not the reader that I am now a year ago, and that the chances that I will give this 6 stars are so much higher now based on how I like to read now and based on how much I previously loved historical fiction. I've like dipped my toes in that kind of genre as this year has progressed. I know that this this is gonna be a book that absolutely tears my heart out. This is actually one of my aunt's favorite reads of all time, and I trust her book taste with literally all of my heart, because when I was a kid, we used to go to her cottage every summer. We now have cottages right beside each other, like me and my parents, and then her cottage is right beside us. When I was a kid, we used to go to that cottage all of the time, and she would go to book clubs all the time, all summer, and I was always like, that's so weird, that's so funny that you read, like it's so funny that you would read in your free time. Like a dorky little grade 5 kid who was genuinely saying that because I couldn't read at the time. I'm the very youngest in my class. I had a lot of trouble learning to read, okay? But they all joke now that obviously I made a whole job out of reading, even though I used to make fun of the older women in my life for choosing to read these books. That being said, this is one of her favorite books. So on top of the fact that this is like a book talk sensation and everyone and their mom seems to really love this, it's kind of top of my mind because I really want to read it and be able to talk to her about it. I know that this is taking place in wartime. I'm pretty sure World War II, and it's a story of 2 sisters on either side of the war. And I don't really want to know anything more because I feel like if the less I know, the more I'll get like that heart shattering, oh my god, it's on the floor feeling. I don't know why I want that feeling either, but can you tell I do? And our very last on our 10 before the end, because I know anyone that has made it this far is going to be screaming at me in the comments because every single time we talk about this book, they're like, what the actual fuck, Maddie? Why haven't you picked this up? And it is in fact Barrier Bones in the Midnight Soil. I have no excuses. Toxic Lesbian Vampires written by V.E. Schwab. You're right, it does sound right up my alley. From what I've gathered, we have 3 women that are essentially buried in the same plot of land in 3 different timelines, and it's those 3 timelines converging and everything that goes from there. However, it is on a toxic lesbian vampire background situation going on. I kind of want to know nothing more than that. Like, I know that the writing in here is going to be so beautiful. I really liked The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Like, it was such beautiful writing, some of my favorite writing that I have ever read, but I didn't overly connect to the story, which was really sad to me because I really thought that was going to be a 5-star. However, I think this one will probably be the 5-star for me. So maybe it's like out of fear, and if I don't read it, I can live in that delusion, but once I read it, I have to know whether it is or not. And apparently that's scary in my brain. Anyways, I introduced to you the leaning tower of my 10 before the end. These are the 10 books that I am telling you that you can meanly, with a lot of kindness, because I am incredibly fragile, hold me to reading every single one of these before we get into the year 2026. Now, you might be asking yourself, again, when's the last time you finished a book? We don't need to talk about it because I have this beautiful list of books right here, and these are going to be the books that get me back into it, and the slump is going to be gone, and life is going to be so rainbows and butterflies again. I swear to God, it fucking has to be. Yeah, that's kind of where we are right now. However, 10 before the end. Let me know if you guys have read any of these. Let me know what you guys thought of them. If there's a certain video or certain books you really want to see in videos, make sure to let me know because I am formatting all of that kind of out now, what the reading vlogs will look like for the rest of the year. And be sure to let me know your 10 before the end because there is always room for rejigging. You know, like maybe I add an 11th if I'm like, how the fuck did I miss that? You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of you are going to say Brimstone, and trust me, Brimstone's up there for me. But it's probably 11 or 12. That's why it's not on this list in terms of importance in my brain. Anyways, let me know what your guys' 10 before the end is and we can discuss and chat all of that. That being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me, and I should really go because I should really start reading. What a crazy concept! What if I just started reading? Stop crying and pick up the book. I'm yelling at me. I'm not yelling at you, I promise. You're doing everything perfect, sweetie. Love you. Bye! Why did that kind of feel like deeply unhinged? Like, I just feel like I recorded 30 minutes of me being like kind of deeply unhinged about stories. I miss reading so bad, but I need to pick up a book and not cry and spiral. So I swear everything's fine. I swear it is. I'm being dramatic. When am I ever not dramatic?